supposed to be recording. Why didn't I remember that? All right, I got it. I'm going to share that, and then I'll come back on. So here's the video on the conceptual framework for Gardner-Webb School of Education. Okay.
From the School of Education at Gardner-Webb University, I bring you greetings. I am Dr. Stephen.
That's not good.
Can you turn the volume up, Dr. Stone?
Yeah, well, yep, yeah. Well, no, it's the volume is as complete as it can be, but I'll tell you what, this isn't working, so we're going to get out of this. Let's, if I can get out of this. Oh, don't you hate it when technology doesn't work? All right, I'm going to go back and unshare for a moment. All right, we're out of that. Okay, so we will probably catch that at some other point, but the dean wanted us to make sure that everyone in the School of Education has a chance to see that, to understand the 4 big frameworks of what we're trying to do here at the School of Education. So if the dean asks, tell him I tried, but we'll try to get it at some other point. When everybody's not Zooming down here, we have about 4 or 5 Zoomers going on. All right, so I always like to start off, I want to start off with a little bit of where we are for the week. As you can tell, or you can see from looking at your blackboard, last week we tried to do all of these different things. We talked about the major frameworks of leadership. I have also included right here the video, that wonderful video that you want to catch if you missed it, of the session 1. So that's there, your discussion board, 21st century. Those are the things that are all on Blackboard. So this week, we are going to spend a little time on Hertzberg. I really want to spend a lot of time on item 3, the recommended retention strategies, because that really hits home to where you are and where you want to go as school leaders. Now, also looking at the weekly class schedule, kind of bring you up to where we are and what you should be already kind of taking care of at this point. Here we are at week 2, motivation, behavior, adult learning, leading adult learners, Hersey and Glickman. You should already be looking at discussion board 3 and 4, and if, at some point begin to upload the CAPE task 2 and certainly task 1 to discussion board. I know some of you are doing that, some of you are getting a little late start, but go ahead and do that. I also want to say Dr. Stedman will be joining us a little bit later on. He was here today for a dissertation defense. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. He was here for a dissertation defense, and he is driving back to Goldsboro, so he may pop in at one point, and if he does, I'm going to stop and let him answer any questions you may have about some of those big tasks that you are working on, because he's more of the expert and the go-to person for that. Next week on our Zoom, we're going to talk about Know Yourself, the principal's role, McGregor, X, and Y. And you see some of the evidence works that you're working on now. The discussion boards, just choose one of those, put it out there for your peers. And that. There's that. All right. I want to talk a little bit about last week, leadership and management. I hope from our discussion you were able to get a little bit of an introductory from Hershey and Glickman. And I really want to re-emphasize to those of you who may not have been here last week or who are watching this through video a little bit later on, don't worry about those textbooks. Now, I would not pay $200 for a textbook that in your career, and I can tell you, Hershey and Glickman were the books that were around when I got my doctorate in 1993. Now, I'm sure I got edition 1 or 2 or 3, I hope. The content, because I did pull out my old book from 1993, the content in Hershey is not that different from where it is in this particular book. Now, I know he's updated it with the modern technologies and things like that. So I say all of that to say don't fret over the textbooks. If you can borrow from someone, or if you can, whatever you need to do, just I don't think that, we don't want that to be a barrier to you. So please don't spend $200 on a textbook. All right. Any questions so far about tonight, what I really like to do is to talk about motivation, behavior, and those adult learners. Particularly want to spend some time talking with you about Generation X and Generation Y. Those learners, those new teachers who are in your building. And up until a couple of months ago, I was the superintendent in Caldwell County, and every new teacher we hired was a Generation Y. Those folks are different. Are any of you Generation, I'll go over this a little bit, but some of you may be Generation Y yourself, but if you aren't, you certainly have worked with Generation Y and X teachers. Now, you're probably Generation X teachers. Generation Y, this group coming, they're a different breed. I can tell you from sitting in on bunches of conferences where we had the new teacher orientation in North Carolina. It's required for our new teachers that first couple of days they bring them back. They are different. I mean, the questions they ask, the way their body language, just a lot of the things that you and I kind of took for granted, they certainly don't mind asking, and they certainly don't mind thinking outside the box. So I want to talk a little bit about what motivates X and Y's, particularly as you have to relate to them in your school building. Before I go on, too, I want to mention, too, I've been following your discussion boards and your discussions, and there's been some really great threads there. So I appreciate you all doing that and keeping up with that and your honest discussions about what goes on in your school. I hope, as I mentioned last week, that you would kind of use me as a resource. I really am not here to tell you what was in chapter 3 and 4 of those books. I hope that we'll have some really good discussions and we can talk about, well, you were a superintendent, how would you handle that? Or I could say, well, how are you handling that at your particular school? I really do hope you lean on me for that. I had 1,800 teachers or staff members in Caldwell County, so I doubt there's a situation that you tell me that I have not had a chance to at least run into it. Now, there are some out there, so I won't bet on it, but I'm pretty sure if it's happened, I'm pretty much aware of it. All right, any questions before we move on? Last week, talked about that leadership, management, supervision, why it's important, your role, the importance of the role that you are in, or the importance in the role that you are aspiring to. If Danny comes on and somebody sees him, kind of interrupt me in case I'm talking and don't see him, and let him talk. Is that okay? Someone? All right, let's talk a little bit about motivation and behavior and leading adult learners. From my experience, let me get rid of that. I'll go to him, but we're going to talk about him in a little bit later on. This is interesting. This is a part that was in your shale, so you probably have had a chance to read it. But there's a couple of things in here I really want to call your attention to. And guys, I really don't want to talk for 35 minutes. I have got so many questions for you. I want you to be able to engage in a conversation with me as well as your colleagues. But let's look at the adult learners. These are the people that are in your building. Just some broad general concepts or some things that I've observed about adult learners. They are different from student learners. You know, when those kindergartners, first and second graders come in your building, they have a different style. They learn in a different way. Well, but a whole lot of research that we've done, that others have done, knows that the adult learners are quite different. One, unlike children, children have to be directed at the very beginning part of their educational career. You have to show them the centers. You have to kind of tell them what they need to be going toward, what learning objectives they need. And there's a lot of direction, even in high school, there's a lot of direction we have to give kids to help them with their learning. That's not necessarily true with the adults in your building. That's not true with the teachers that you're working with or will be working with when you start further down your administrative career, because you're going to be working with adults and they're different. One, they're self-directed. There's a little bit of, they don't necessarily need us. They really do, but they don't believe it, that they need us to help them. They do take a lot of responsibility for their own learning, just as I'm discovering about you all. That's a part of being an adult learner. They're practical. They're results-oriented. They like to have something that relates to, if they're going to learn something, they want it to be related to something that they can use. How many of you have had teachers come back to you at one of your county district staff development sessions and said that was totally worthless, that my time was better spent in my classroom? That's because as an adult learner, they're results oriented. They want to be there if they can get something out of it. So adult learners are practical. They want it to be something that they can use. They're also less open-minded. When you think about this, they're more resistant to change, and I'm sure this you see in your schools as you try to start working on some of your projects and trying to do some things. There are people in your building who are going to be very resistant to that change. And that's not meaning that they don't want, they're not learning. It just means they're kind of set in their ways, and you're going to have to overcome some barriers to get them to understand understand why this is important. And the biggest question that they're going to say is why? Why do I have to do this? Why do we do this? We did this 6 years ago. It didn't work. So that's their take on it. Why? You got to be able to answer that question, why? The other thing about adult learners, these are teachers, these are teacher assistants and others in your building, is that they learn at a slower pace. They don't have that capability of a young kid who, or that young student in your building who just absorbs. You can see the sponge for them in elementary schools in particular. But they are slower to learn, but they can go into a lot more depth with that learning. Elementary kids, they learn and they learn a lot. I mean, but the level in which they're learning, the depth in which they're learning is not as deep as it is for our adult learners. The other part that our adult learners are different, quite different from young learners, is that they draw upon their life experiences. And that life experience will certainly color and will impact that resistance or their ability to learn. If they've had a bad experience 5 years ago with effective schools research and it just didn't work, the principal didn't support them in it all and it didn't fail, you're going to have a hard time with them because their life experiences tell them that this is not going to work. Or they tried it, they didn't get the results. Maybe they didn't have the fidelity with it that they should, but those life experiences will motivate them. They also need to be motivated. They need to be given responsibilities, and they need to have the opportunity to contribute to something. They have to have that sense that they're being more than just being asked, that they're given an opportunity to participate, and their participation really means something, and it means something to you. It's not just something you're having to check off on your list that you got 10 teachers to participate. They're going to have to really mean something to them. And again, they have high expectations. They really do. They really want something and expect something out of that learning experience that you're going to lead them through. Whether it's through self-evaluation, when you go through advanced ed, you're going to have to really meet that need of theirs to be their high expectations. So they're adult learners. Now let's talk about these strange creatures you have in your building, generation, not you, the Generation X generation, which is probably any of you. You don't have to tell me. You can kind of look at me and smile because no one else will see it, I guess. Can you see each other? Oh, okay. All right. Well, then you may not want to do this. If you're a Generation X, you were born in the mid-60s to the 1980s. That's Generation X. And there are about 5 million of you right now in the United States. But here's how we define you. I'm not asking if you're Generation X. I'm not. I'm a baby boomer. I'm much, much older than you guys. But if you were a Generation X, and these are teachers in your building. Now, these are probably your teachers they're probably mid-career. They're in that range. Think about what was going on when they were growing up. They were latchkey kids. Their mom and dad, I mean, this was during the 80s and 90s, in the 60s and 90s, 60s to the 90s, but they were latchkey kids. Many of them were raised by single parents. They also, this is something that's going to impact you when you hire these people and you work with them. They watch their mom and dad work themselves to death in factories or on jobs, and then at a whim, the factory closes or the jobs go away. So they have in their mind job security, and that's a big motivating force for them. So as far as being a learner, these people are going to be more in tune to learning if they think it's going to help them with that job retention. So these are very compliant people. These are the ones who are going to go get those extra skills. They're going to be there on time for that staff development. They're going to do anything you ask them to as a principal because they're tying it to job security, because they grew up seeing their parents not having that and at the whim being out of jobs. So so as a part of that too, they're not going to be very loyal to you unless you are loyal to them. Their loyalty, they will leave you tomorrow to go to North Carolina if it pays more, or South Carolina if it pays more, unless you built that relationship with them. So that's the key part about it, is for that Generation X, which some of you might be, some of you may not. That's the thing. So how do you motivate this group? And again, if you have a question, you can chat. I'm sure I could find chat down here somewhere, or raise your hand, and I'll stop talking for a minute. But I can only see like a couple of you, so I'm going to learn Zoom. But you can chat to me. So that's Generation X. Those are the teachers in your building, the teacher assistants in your building who were born in the mid-60s on to the 80s. Now, Generation Y, there may be one or two of you Generation Ys. Those are people that are born in the late 70s to the late 90s. So that's like that's on the 20-year period from the late 70s to the early 90s. 70 million of those. And these are probably the teachers in your building who have the 10 years, 7 to 10 years maybe. These are also the teachers in your building who you can see some specific characteristics. And we're not even going to talk about the generation that follows these teachers because you're going to be getting them very soon. But here are the Generation Y. They're the millennials. And these folks are how you can define them. All right, easy. Think of them as trophy kids. Do you remember the phase in school where everybody got a trophy? If you participated, you got a trophy. I mean, we did that to kids. I mean, that was kind of what we did. And so this generation, the millennials, are defined by the lower expectations because everybody got a trophy. Everybody got something just for participating. So think of them as the trophy kids. They're overly praised. Think of the helicopter moms. Well, these are the kids of the helicopter moms. And they're over scheduled. This generation was the one for the first time where the parents started saying, oh, you need dance, you need music, you need to play baseball, you need to be softball. I mean, they went somewhere every afternoon. And again, it's that overachiever, feel good about yourself, that kind of trophy kid. So this is the generation. This is how that generation is defined. So in order to motivate them, now this generation is a little bit easier to motivate if you have the right tools because job security just doesn't do it for them because they are not tied to the job. They're more tied to the individual. They're more tied to you as the school leader. So Generation Y, here's how you motivate them. Keep them busy. That's the bottom line. Give them multitask. Let them do whatever they like, as long as they're doing it within the framework that you do it. Kind of like give them a box and tell them you can do anything you want in this box as long as you don't get out of the lines. And they will deliver it to you 10, 15 different ways to handle something. They multitask. That's what they do. They also like collaboration. They like teams. They like team building activities, which Generation X, those of us who are Generation X and baby boomers, we weren't very big on those. I know I'm not very big on those team building activities. I kind of go in the corner and say, hey, I'm going to get water out of the bathroom. I'll come back and that's my generation. But Generation Y, they thrive on collaboration. Think about all the video games they played where they played with other people. Think about all the times in which they were on a team where they played with other people. So they're more of a team type approach. So give them opportunities to collaborate. Go back to that box idea. They're going to they need to see they don't need to see the box. What they need to see is you saying as a leader, okay, we have this problem, and that is the carpool line runs for 30 minutes, and we got to get it down to 15. You have established the box, and by giving them the task and saying, here's some of the things you can't do. Obviously you can't have kids running across 3 or 4 lines going. But let them go ahead and develop that, but give them some parameters because this generation will go outside the box if you don't have some parameters for them. Needless to say, technology, the best, the fastest, the greatest. They're going to be in your office if they don't have the latest technology. They thrive on it. They know how to use it. I mean, let them go with it. They're your technology gurus. They like challenges. Because remember that team sport, all that growing up of having to compete, and even though everybody got something, they still like the ability to challenge. They like relationships. They like building those relationships. Very much so like the positive reinforcement. I mean, they grew up with this stuff. So make sure your positive reinforcement is genuine, it's sincere. They like that. As far as a leader and how you can relate better to your Generation Ys, my experience and experience from others has been that they really like to be engaged with you. They don't like the idea of the principal, the assistant principal sitting up there in the office and only visiting their classrooms when you evaluate them. They like you coming by and saying, what are you doing? What are the kids doing over in this corner? Or what's this project? Or the next time you have a big project, invite me down so I can be a part of it. They really like that personal engagement with you. That's the personal engagement they have with their parents. And so they really like that. They really like for that principal to be, or assistant principal to be, someone who is out and about and being a part of their work environment. And of course, communication. They'll communicate any way you want them to. They are very much involved in communication. This new generation, I'm not even sure, what do they call now? Does anybody know what the new generation after the Y is called? I call them strange. I'm sure that's not what they're called.
Isn't it Z?
It may be Z. Jason, are you a Z? They are. I mean, and that's who's coming in your door now is your brand new teachers, and they're going to need a lot of support because I think they all have ADHD. I may be wrong, but they are really needy. And we'll talk a little bit more about them a little bit later on at another session. So any questions on your adult learners and how you as an administrator are going to have to interact with them? Did someone just chat with me? Did something showed up? Nope. All right. Let's talk about one of the readings you had to do. Hertzberg. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is because usually I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the stuff that you all can read during the week and read it like 5 or 6 times and memorize it. But there's a couple things I want to call your attention to in this article that I really like. And by the way, Hertzberg is even though his research was in the 1959, any book you pick up is going to have research on Hertzberg because he did something different that most researchers, I mean, he's kind of like the standard that you go to. And when you start doing research papers and start working on your doctorate, you're going to run into this gentleman, particularly when you start doing your research, you're going to run into him quite a bit. He probably started with the open-ended questions. Up until him in the 1959s, it was always a yes, no, true, false, A, B, C, D. Well, he went into this his whole theory and his whole experience of looking at workers in 1959 was to kind of leave it open-ended questions. And what he looked at was job satisfaction. And so he developed that in the 1959s. He was, where is it? Right here. I don't know if you all can see it or not, but he was the first one to show that a person's satisfaction at work and dissatisfaction at work really are not that related. They come from different factors. They come from different sets of problems or different sets of things. He also, which I really like, this is down in the next page, he talked about, here it is, on this side right here, where my cursor is. Can you see my cursor? He also talked about, he put it in the theme of, he had a rocket and all that kind of stuff, but he really said that satisfaction and dissatisfaction comes from 2 different areas. But in order for someone to be happy or unhappy, you've got to meet one of the 2. This sounds like Maslow, doesn't it? You've got to meet one of the 2 things. One is their hygiene needs, which are their maintenance needs, and the other is their motivating, what motivates them. And he says in his research, which has been replicated many, many times, is that these first ones here, policy, personal life, people need that simply to operate. And if you provide all those things for them, minus the company car, because I know you don't have those at school, but if you provide all those things for them, they're going to be happy for a while. And then they're going to take those hygiene factors, hygiene needs for granted because it's become the standard. But if you don't have these, they're going to be extremely unhappy. That's the first level on happiness, is when you're missing one of these things here. So as a building level principal or as a building level assistant principal, this is what the assistant principal does all day, taking care of these hygiene needs. I hope that's not what you end up having to do when you become an assistant principal, because we really have encouraged principals to move away from that. But be ready, because these are the kinds of things you're going to have to make sure that carpool line runs, the teachers have a schedule, those bathrooms are clean, that there's teachers in the classroom. You're going to have to deal with a lot of those things. And as an assistant principal, teachers are going to come to you with a lot of things that they're not going to spend time talking to the principal about their personal life, about relationships with others. Those are the basic needs. And again, you need them to be happy, and that's if you're an assistant principal, that's going to be an awesome part of your responsibility. Now that, and again, once they're there and it's kind of established and they know, Tawanda, you're going to be there every day providing these things for them, they're going to be ready for the next, and they're not going to be very happy very long unless the next level is provided to them. And the next level is motivation, the true motivators. And these are the things that really gets your employees, really will get your people happy, wanting to be there, and contributing to the organization. And they are achievement, recognition, the value of self-worth, and just the value of the work itself, responsibility, and the last one, of course, is that advancement. Okay, you guys are going to have to unmute yourself for a minute, because do you see this big red question here? To what extent is money a motivator? If you haven't read this, I want to know, do you think money is a motivator, and why? For teachers in your classroom. Is money, is it a, let me put it in the context of, is it a hygiene need, of course, or does it also go to the level of true motivators? Now, if you've already read the article, you know the answer, what he says. But I'm asking you, what do you think? Because I hear that all the time. I hear teachers, teacher assistants, and others saying, you know, if you paid me more, I'd do more. And that's kind of the model that in South Carolina that you're using, your state government uses, and that's also the model in North Carolina. That's all merit pay. There's a sense that if I pay you a little bit more, you're going to be the most phenomenal person in the world. So most politicians believe that money is a motivator. So is it? What motivates you? I know it's not money because you're teachers.
It helps.
It does help. It meets some of those hygiene needs.
Yes.
Would you, let me ask you, Tawanda, where are you?
I'm in South Carolina.
Aiken?
Darlington County.
Darlington. So would you drive, and Darlington's one of the counties on the line of North Carolina, right?
Yes, close.
So would you drive across the border for North Carolina for another $1,000 salary?
Not 1,000. Not 1,000. It's gonna be more. I'm Generation X.
You're telling them yourself.
I'm
All
comfortable. Right. It's gonna have to be something great to make me move.
And you're not going to drive all day because that's not a gratification for you. I mean, that's just not going to happen. So what, I know I'm going to give the rest of you a chance to talk to, because I really do want to hear from you, because this is the format I want in these Zoom sessions, because I'm kind of boring. And so you guys will pick up on this, I hope. But he says, Hertzberg says that money is not a motivator, that it is a part of that just basic thing that you have to do. Despite what people tell you, people are motivated by more and bigger things than money. And he said, and in this, you'll see that 43% of the people in his survey said that they left their job because they weren't stimulated, they didn't have an opportunity for advancement, or they left for a more exciting place to work, or they felt more value. So that's your generation. Why?
Dr. Stone, excuse me.
Yes.
He did this study around 1959.
Yes.
Things are a lot different now because it depends on what your needs are if money is going to be a motivating factor. If you're early in your career or if you have a lot of debt, they're just different things. Money is a motivator. I think so.
All right. His study was done in 1959, but it's been replicated several times since. So even though he's a 1959, when you look at some of the cited references in the book or in his article here itself, some of those are in the 1980s, 1990s. I mean, so I think it's been replicated several other times since 1959. So, but to your point, try to get a new teacher and compete with Charlotte Mecklenburg and see where they go.
No.
But think about that.
But do you think there's a teacher shortage because of money?
Of course it is.
So doesn't that
Of course.
money motivate?
All right, but think about some teacher that left your building to go to the private industry. They may have gone for money, and probably money was a motivator. But what else did they tell you they left for?
I actually left and went into corporate for money, but then I came back.
Okay. But what else did teachers tell you they leave for?
The
Job
stress.
satisfaction. They don't like giving tests. They don't like the way, they don't feel like they're valued in their school. So I agree with you. Money is a factor, but that's not going to get you to go across the line to North Carolina. That's not going to get that brand new Generation Y or Generation, what'd you call them, Z? That's not going to get them into our buildings and keep them into our buildings. Because the next job that comes along, if it's all about money, and I say that to you because I do think, because I do disagree with them in the spec that it's not a little bit about money, but there's so many other factors too, that because you can't provide that extra money, because as much as you'd like to pay teachers thousands of dollars more, you can't. So there's going to have to be some other higher motivating things that we do to keep teachers in the building. So I agree with you. Money is important and it does drive stuff, but there are some teachers who will tell you that they quit work because they can't stand the workload. They can't stand giving tests. They feel like the principal doesn't support them. They feel like that they're just, the kids aren't parents. I mean, they give you a litany of questions, because I've sat in on some exit interviews in Caldwell County. And now maybe it was because they didn't want to tell me, it was because I wasn't paying them very much. But that was always low on the list of why they were leaving us. I mean, but other job opportunities would be high on the list, which may very well be money. So we will respectfully disagree sometimes about money with Dr. Hertzberg. All right. Any questions on that before we go to one more item I want to share with you? And this
I have one question, Dr. Stone.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You made a statement about job satisfaction and dissatisfaction. You said they were not related, or they were related?
By Hertzberg's, they were not.
Okay.
Well, let me back up. The factors that affect them were not related. There are separate factors between job satisfaction and job dissatisfaction. It's not one or the other.
Okay.
All right. North Carolina, for those of you who are South Carolina, it won't be news. You probably you probably know more about North Carolina as much as you do about South Carolina, but in North Carolina, teachers are evaluated on 6 different standards. And standard 4, and as a principal or assistant principal, they evaluated, and we have a whole evaluation rubric, but every single evaluation of principals has to do, principals have 7, has to do with standard 4. Whenever you do a goal or a plan that you work on, you've got to deal with goal 4. You've got to have a goal for goal 4. And that's because we are losing so many teachers. So goal 4 in North Carolina for school executives deals with human resources management. There's 7 goals. But if I were your superintendent and you were doing an evaluation, and I had to evaluate, and I was evaluating you, and I gave you some goals to work on, I may give you a goal to work on improving your test scores. That would be one of them. The other one I'd probably give you a goal was one of the 7 would be about your climate, ways in which you can improve the climate, get more parents involved. But by law, I would have to have one on standard 4 in North Carolina. And standard 4 is human resource management. And so this research was recently done by the TNTP report. I'm not sure who they are, but it asked how could principals keep high flyers in their school? And these are the 8 different things that they suggested that principals could do. Now remember, these are people with experience. These are top teachers who said this is why they were going to keep teaching in their schools. Under feedback, they want regular positive feedback that goes back to the adult learner. And when you give feedback as a principal or assistant principal, what they don't want is that checklist of very good, kids are all in their seats. If you saw something, and they kind of are looking to you as the instructional leader, because that's who you are. If you saw something, that they really want something concrete and specific. I mean, if you're going to walk out of there and give them that they walk on water, super. But what they would really prefer is something for me to work on, because as adult learners, they really do want to satisfy. And so provide them with something, identify an area of development for them, and be critical about it. Of course, you're going to be and do it informally on many different occasions. They like recognition. They want to know that you see that they're doing a good job. They want that recognition from you because they still view you as the leader. And they want to be told that they're high performing. They don't want to be told in a staff meeting that, some of you aren't turning in your reports on time. Some of you do a great job. They want to hear that they are. That's that trophy part. They want to hear that they are doing well. And you don't have to do it in a staff meeting, but they do want you to do it at some point. They want that pat on the back. They also want you to believe in them enough that maybe some of your principals did for you that, you know what, because someone did this to me when I was teaching in South Carolina, the best principal in the world. He, in my third year there, he came by, he said, I'm going to let you start doing some of this stuff, during your planning period. Well, it wasn't planning period. What was it? The period I had to get out of my room, probably. But he gave me some things to do. And, at the end, I'm thinking, well, why have I got to do some of these things? But what he said was, I see some leadership in you. And throughout that, it was some personal time where I got to talk about, well, how do you get to be a school leader? So within that, why I say that is because high flyers and people who want to stay with you want to know that somewhere down the road that there are some other paths and other opportunities for them. And it's not just duties. It's some other opportunities. I hope that you all are encouraging some really high-flying teachers in your building. Hey, look, I'm in a graduate program. I'm looking toward, and talk about some high flyers. I recommend you look at that. That is just an awesome feedback when their principals recognizes in them that they have some kind of potential to be a leader. Oh, that's awesome. It'll make them feel so good, but it's got to be sincere and it's got to be true. Put them in charge of something important, and give them the support, and don't just put them out there to do it all themselves, but put a committee around them. Build a support thing where they can actually be the leader, and then make sure you go to whatever event that they are putting on or they're sponsoring, if that's the important task, and make sure that you give them some really good feedback from it. And of course, resources. Who doesn't want more resources and those kinds of things? Everybody would like that. I've talked for 40 minutes. You let me talk for 40 minutes. What do you have to talk about this week? Oh, are you ready to get rid of me? You ready to go home? I feel like I bet you down last week, so I thought maybe we would go for like an hour and a half tonight so we can make up for last week. Nobody's smiling, huh?
No.
I'm kidding too. All right. Well, that's it for this week. I am going to. I am recording it, so I will also send you an email a little bit later on, giving you a link to this. I'll also put it on our website. Remember, next week we're going to talk about the principal and the XY. No, I forgot what the theory. I can bring it up real quick. I am beginning to the point where I love Blackboard. Can you believe it? I didn't think I ever would. The role of the principal. If you haven't taken this leadership style, we talked about it last week, but go ahead and do that. Just this real quick little quiz. It'll take you about 5 minutes. We'll talk about principal. My apologies to you folks in South Carolina, but we are going to talk about North Carolina General Statute 115C. That's the duties and responsibilities of the principal. It spells out in great detail what your job is. And then I think that's it. I don't know what the MTSS is, but I'll look at it. All right, any questions for me? I guess Danny didn't join us, so if you have any questions about the CAPE, or you have any other questions about anything in TaskStream or anything you're putting out, give him a call or shoot me a chat, and if I don't know the answer, I'll find out from Danny. And if not, we'll Zoom out, and I'll see you next week, same time, same channel. Oh, wait, there's something up here at the top. Chat, free. Oh, Jason, you are not. Yes, I should know that. All right. Thank you, Jason. Can you all see Jason's email here on my, can you see his chat?
We can see the chat.
Am I supposed to do that? To let you all see it? Or is that a faux pas? That's
us raising our hands and contributing without disturbing you.
I know, but is it where you should be able to see it? So you all are now seeing all of Jason's individual thoughts and his beliefs, and I don't know, you may be judging him. I don't know. Well, am I supposed to hide these when you all email me or what?
Dr. Stone, if he wants it to be private, he can change the setting on it.
Okay. All right. I learn something from you all the time. Okay. All right. Enjoy the rest of your night. Have a great Friday, great weekend. I'll see you next Wednesday night.
Thursday.
Right. Zoom out.
Thursday?
Yes, Thursday. What did I say? Wednesday?
Yeah.
That's my other class that goes for 2.5 hours. Would you like an invite to that?
No, thank you.
Not at this time.
Okay. All right. Good night.
All right, good night.
How do I turn this off?
End
wait.
meeting.
Yeah, there it is. Thank you.
You're welcome.